Welcome to the Divine Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Tara Migalski. Together with my guest experts, I cover topics ranging from cutting-edge healing modalities to hormonal harmony, to nutrition and plant medicine, to mindfulness and spirituality. My goal is to educate and inspire so you can create your own divine lifestyle. It's time to dive inward, rewire your brain, and heal from the inside out. Welcome to the Divine Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Tara Migalski. Today, I am joined by Lindsay Lulu Simmons, founder at Healing with Lulu. Lulu teaches leaders and healers how to embody their medicine because she's been where you've been. She also holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, a license in massage therapy, and extensive certifications in yoga and yoga therapy, and specializes in teaching you how to speak the language of your body. She is an expert at seeing, understanding, and guiding you into deep union and soul alignment. Lulu helps you to actualize your goals, manage your mind, and consciously integrate traumatic life experiences through her private work and programs like The Sacred Alchemy, a self-healer's journey, which we're going to learn more about soon. Thank you so much for being here, Lulu.
Thank you, Tara. It's an honor.
Yes. Welcome, welcome. So listen, before we dive into your work and we get into our conversations, I just want to know more about you, and I want the audience to learn about who you are. Where did you grow up?
Well, originally I was born in North Carolina, like right in the middle of the state. And I went to school in Chapel Hill, but I really feel like I found my home when I moved south to Charleston, South Carolina. I feel like that was really the first place that felt like mine. And it was the place where I started my career and built my community and always really felt like home. And, but I grew up in North Carolina doing competitive swimming. So I actually swam, I don't know if you know this about me, but I swam year round for 10 years. Athletics was a huge part of my life. And I really attribute that work ethic, what I learned from sports, to my success as an entrepreneur, you know, because I'm not a stranger to hard work. And it was
discipline.
Yeah, and discipline. I've heard swimming competitively compared to military camp, actually, which I know nothing about, but talk about discipline. Like, it's there for sure.
Amazing. So you were a swimmer. How did you end up? Because I know that you now live in Bacalar, Mexico. Tell us how you lived in the South and how you made your way to the beautiful healing lands of Bacalar.
Well, yoga, and to say it short and sweet, yoga is really how I ended up in Mexico, because I started in Tulum assisting on a yoga retreat. And the moment I was there, I actually remembered traveling there in my teen years for like spring break. But when I went to Tulum, something just felt different. I felt alive in a way I'd never felt alive. And I was like, okay, how do I get here more? And so I started to attend more yoga retreats, to assist more yoga retreats. And then I went to Mexico to find a resort to lead a retreat. And that's how I found Bacalar. It was like kind of word of mouth. I was in Mexico for 2 weeks and I met 3 people who told me that I should go to Bacalar. And the first time I was like, what is Bacalar? And then by the third one, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I hear you. I'm going. Let's go. And I went with friends, and nothing has really ever been the same since. I mean, you've been there. You know what it feels like. It's the place where I feel the most alive, the most at home in my whole being, really, like body, mind, heart, soul, all of the above.
I cannot agree more. I feel the very same way about most of Mexico, but in particular being down in Tulum and, traveling down to Bacalar, it's like something happens to the cells in my body. They just start like jumping. I've never like I radiate, my spirit radiates. My skin glows, my hair flows. It's just, I can't even put words on it. It's just, you're just so in the frequency and the moisture in the air, like just everything works for me. So I hear you.
It's so true. I can't really put words to it either. I find that a lot when I'm working with the body as well. Like, I think there are just certain things that are really meant to only be felt.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So you have such an amazing story about how you have stepped into the work that you're doing. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about a pivotal moment or catalyst moment in your life that led you to the work that you're doing now.
Thank you for that compliment. It's interesting because usually I only share about one, but as I've been reflecting more, there are actually two. The first one was I was 12 years old and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune kidney disease. And I met a doctor who recommended yoga. And that's how I started practicing yoga. And like that was like kind of a moment of really being able to feel in my body. Like I've done this before and I don't know how. And I was so young. I was 12 years old feeling like I had done this before. And then the next big moment, of course, was the loss of my father when I was 20. So 8 years later, we lost him both suddenly and he was sick for a while, like he was sick, but we thought he was getting better. And then he was just gone. And that was really, I call it my point of no return, actually. It was the point in my life where there was no going back. There was only going forward. And it was also this moment of like, what am I doing here? I mean, I know I'm only 20. I'm not really supposed to know what I'm doing yet, but also like, what are all of us doing? If someone can die that quickly, how am I also enjoying and appreciating my life? Where am I living? Am I happy? And if not, how do I get happy? Because for me, there was just no more wasting time after that. It was like it was a catalyst moment, as you call it. Like it was I don't know, whatever this is.
An awakening, it was an awakening. I really believe that, a lot of times when, especially as a young woman, when you lose someone like that, that is just it's that moment where your life has changed forever. And I'm just honored that you are stepping into the work and doing this work. But anyways, I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional because I just recently lost my father. So this is just hitting hard and hitting home for me. But please share more.
Thank you for that. I know I was going to say you're no stranger to loss either. And I think it's like, it's such a powerful initiation, losing a parent, like that's a word I learned in my 30s, right? I didn't know that when I was 20. I was just like bumping around in the dark, trying to figure out something that brought me happiness. And the only thing that I could think of was helping others. It was the only thing that made me happy. It was the only thing that made me feel like I had some sort of purpose or purpose-driven life or meaning. There was just that, and I really devoted so much of my own personal healing, but also my energy to really helping and supporting others, because it brought me really, I would say it brought me closer to God. It brought me closer to spirit, to myself, to my heart, to like something that can feed you that like no food or drink can touch. No.
It's
So
that divine essence. It literally brought you home.
yeah, I did.
Yeah. Wow. And you were very close with your father, it seems. um, when I lost my mother at 27, who sounds like a lot of your relationship with your father was just like mine with my mother. She was my rock. I had a very similar experience, you know, it was that big awakening. What am I doing here? What am I here to do? How can I serve? And that was the genesis of Divine Lifestyles was then in 2008. What I think is really interesting.
2008. That was the year my father died.
Yeah. It was?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That was the year my mother died.
Yeah. May 12th.
Wow. May 27th. I have full body chills.
Ooh, so do I. On my head. What?
Whoa. We didn't know where this was going to go. Yes, I have full body chills. May 27th, 2008, my life changed forever.
Yeah.
So,
wow, there's still
wow. Yes. So, well, this is a perfect time for me to just share this for the people who are listening. I met Lulu. Gosh, it was a total divine intervention encounter because I was at a retreat. What was that?
It was a women's circle.
Yes, but how I got there was divine intervention because I was there at the retreat for La Luna Love. Then I left and I was over at Habitas, and I decided that this just wasn't feeling good to me. And so I said, I have to go back to Alkalki because that's where I was just feeling the rest and the nourishment that my body was so craving. So I said to my husband, do you mind if I, I annoy him, but I'm like, do you mind if I try and get our money back and we leave? He's like, sure, do whatever you want. So sure enough, I did. I went to the front desk and I was like, listen, this isn't really feeling great. Like I want to go back to Alkalki. Is that like, can I get my money back? They were like, we'll give you one night back. And I was like, great. So we took it, went, left. I literally walked into Alkalki, checked in, and like was led into the women's circle. I hadn't even put my bag, I put my bags down. That was it. And I was like, okay. It was like I was supposed to be there at that exact time. The wonderful woman at the front desk was like, oh, drop your bags, come join us for the circle. And that was when I met you.
Wow. I did not know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, and I knew Lisa because I had met Lisa previously at the retreat. So it was this beautiful divine flow. And my husband was like, oh yeah, honey, go ahead. So there I was. And for people who are listening, I want them to know a little bit about this beautiful circle that we did with yoni steaming and the Mapache uterus cleansing. And then we went into the Temescal, and then we were naked howling at the moon in the lagoon. I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Actually, I remember because that was the third ritual ever that Lily had led. And that night in particular, the group was so connected. It was one of the more powerful circles that I had been in. And really the first time the group really felt like really big stuff, I feel, happened that night.
Yeah, I mean, it was very powerful. So that was the night that Lulu and I met. And when we were done with this, I think it was like a 4 or 5 hour circle, I went over to you and we were chatting with Lisa. And I was like, you were like, I see you. And I was like, I see you. And I was like, how do we stay in touch? And how do we, work together? How do we continue this? And that was kind of something I just felt from across the circle in my body, in my spirit. So I just think it's kind of like crazy full circle that we share such a similar life changing moment in literally a couple of weeks apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember feeling connected to you from the very moment that you spoke. Like, I remember being aware of you across, because we were like directly across from each other. And there were maybe 30 women there. There were a lot of women. And I remember feeling connected with you, with your energy and with what you shared, and like very touched. And you were one of the women that I really wanted to connect with. So when you came over, I was like really excited, and how synchronistic that Lisa was able to connect us after. And yeah, it's just, I don't have many
Yeah.
moments like that also in Bacalar, I should say. Like, I don't have many moments like that. Like, I meet a lot of incredible people, but to meet women that I'm meant to like be engaged in some kind of work in is something different. So unique.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got the chills again. So that is just the power, I think, of one, two sisters seeing each other and also being led by spirit and stepping into their gifts. Like, we're very similar in our life's purpose and how spirit is using us to help other women. And I see you and I acknowledge you. And I'm so excited to just talk more about your work. So let's talk about it. Tell us a little bit more about, what you believe healing really is. And I love how you said, like, not the fluffy stuff, not the fluffy version, because you and I have gotten very deep on this in the past. So let's dive in.
Like, I love being reminded of the fluffy, like not the fluffy version, because we have gone really deep in this. And I also experience us as two very soft, like gentle women, like, but I also really feel that softness is true power, especially when it comes to the feminine. So to speak about the not fluffy, but also have like a warm quality to my voice, just I'm enjoying the juxtaposition. And and what is healing? Well, there's a couple of things. One, healing is what you do naturally. It's your natural state. If you live in a body, you are a healer, in my opinion, because you have this innate magnificence, this innate intelligence that's leading you through your life. That's, if I want to lift my arm, like I can lift my arm, like there is this intelligence, this automatic aspect to living in a body that is so powerful and nurturing. And there's a wisdom that we hold inside of our bodies that our species, the human race, our species has been seeking to understand forever. And we understand so little, truly. I feel like it's that thing that we said at the beginning of, there are some things that are meant to be felt, not really understood. And when it comes to having a body and being in a body, that's pretty much the basics. Where I get into, I don't know, where I like don't enjoy being in the healing industry is when I feel that the healing process is oversimplified or understated, or like, one of the things that probably hurts my heart the most is when I hear a client or a friend or a student say something like, but I already did that. They're like already condescending to themselves because they already healed that, and they're not willing to do it again. It's like, healing is life. It's a cyclical process of meeting yourself in a new place, in the same place, over and over and over again. And the gentleness that's required to really embody true healing is profound. The gentleness, the tenderness, it's where the mind comes in and judges, the length of time or the quality of the healing, or puts it on sort of some grading scale, right? Of like, oh, I got an A+ in healing the death of my father. It's like, no, I get knocked upside the head all the time from the grief of losing my father. And, I had a breakup last year that knocked me right back into healing my father. There was like this huge gap that I hadn't even touched yet, that breakup accessed for me. And so it's always this process of learning and moving forward. And one of my teachers has a quote. His name's Dr. John Upledger, and he popularized what's known as craniosacral therapy and somato-emotional release, which is some of the foundations of my work. He kind of has this sense of humor about it. It's like, don't ever want to be done healing, because you're done when you're dead. So if you want to be dead, but if you want to be alive, like, it's going to be messy. It's going to be continuous. Like, I'm healing from a sprained ankle, like, as we speak right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true that, healing is a process. It's a journey, lifelong journey, and it comes in waves. 2008, I spent 10 years healing from my mother's death. And like, my brain told me, oh, you're in a good place with that. Father gets sick, then father passes in January. I'm right back to grieving my mother. Now I'm grieving two parents, which then was followed by a miscarriage. So then I was grieving 3 times. So when you met me, that is where I was. I was coming out of reprocessing all of the death that I've had, the major death in my life, both parents and the recent miscarriage. So, boy, was that another deep dive inward. But I'm lucky enough to be able to have tools, and know what it is that I need to do for myself. And being, healing is in that moment when I was, at Habitas, and I knew that it wasn't serving my soul, and being able to say, you know what, this isn't exactly what I need right now. Like, this is feeling like a lot. It was like moving into more of like a party atmosphere. And I was like, that's just not at all where I'm at. Let me go back to what it is that I feel I need right now. And I think that is one of the most important things as you're moving through trauma and different circumstances, is really listening to yourself, what it is that you need.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better, because that was the other thing I really wanted to witness in what you're sharing, is that you received that information and you trusted that and you immediately took action. There's so many people who feel that, and then immediately their mind goes, nope, we can't do that. We're booked here. We don't want to raise a fuss, or we don't want whatever the story is, right? It's like, you felt that and you took action, and I'm sure you were rewarded in many ways by your body. And
absolutely, it's how I met you. It's how I was able to sit in that circle. But it's so funny because my husband, I'm kind of smirking because my husband's like, oh, you did it again. And I said to him, listen, I want you to understand that I'm not trying to be difficult. When I'm feeling these impulses, they are coming from a very, very clear place. And he's like, okay, he's getting better, but he definitely finds it tough sometimes to travel with me, because he'll be like, should I unpack or are we moving?
Yeah, I really
And
do.
I'm like, I don't know. I have to feel the room a little bit longer. Why don't you go to the beach? I've got an exciting offer for all of my listeners. The free Divine Daily Practices video series. Get simple practices to release anxious thoughts, sharpen your intuition, and rewire your nervous system in less than 10 minutes a day. Come on over to my website at divinelifestyles.com/divine daily practices. And over the next week, you'll receive a complimentary self-care system to drop into your authentic self and activate your divine intuitive wisdom. I hope you enjoy.
You know, but the other thing that reminds me of about like the healing, like the definition of healing not being fluffy is it's not easy having intuition, having psychic abilities, having like being able to see people, being able to see souls, being able to see energy, shadows. Like there's nothing easy or pretty or nice about that, like it is a process. And like I really acknowledge his authenticity in that, like difficulty of like, because that's also what can take place inside of you, is like inside of me I've been like, oh come on, like are we really doing this again? Like can't you just be satisfied with blah blah blah? Or like why do you have to feel this, or why do you have to feel that? It's like that's part of the really honest conversations that happen when you're learning to live your life from a different place. Like body, heart versus mind, intellect, and when I hear, I don't know who you want to call it, but when I hear like healers or psychic clairvoyants or empaths speak about the process being like fun or easy or like amazing, I'm like, well, just wait. It's like there is an amazing quality to being able to connect that deeply with spirit there and the body. And there's also a whole underbelly of what it can cost you, to live out of alignment and to feel where that alignment is. A lot of like my journey of following my intuition was like learning how to see in the dark. Like you don't always know that moving hotels is going to bring you like a gift or like harmony, right? Like you didn't know, but you had been engaged enough in that process to know that it might, like there was a strong possibility, and that you knew what it costs you not to listen.
Yes. Yes. And you can't, it's not that you can't, let me rephrase that. It's when you get like an intuitive hit, it's one of those things that, for me, I just kind of go, okay, where is this coming from? Is this coming from fear? Is this coming, I try and like intellectualize a little bit to kind of understand what exactly is going on. And you're right. I said, this is going to cost me more. And I know the feeling that I had in this other space. And I want to get back to that space. It was expansive. It felt beautiful. It felt calming and peaceful. And I also at this point know to trust myself that, yeah, I might, ruffle a few feathers, but like, if I can make it happen, follow it, because there's something really like, there's a reason why spirit is leading me there. And I always find some beautiful gem on the other side, which in this case, it proved itself true again. But yeah, I mean, it's tough because you want to intellectualize and say, okay, you'll be fine. Just relax. You'll do fine here. But when it's tugging at you, man, you got to listen. You have to listen.
I also feel like that's one of the gifts of having really great challenges in your life is like, remember where you were in that process of like really feeling the weight and the magnitude of grieving 3 times. It's like sometimes that's the gift in having like a really, deep loss and deep grief and deep trauma, is like your patience with talking yourself out of things just withers. It's like, no, this is what I need. Like, it's been hard enough. This is what I need. And so it also kind of makes it easier to take care of yourself in some ways, like a little bit more confronting also, but that's one of the gifts.
Yeah, you mentioned something to me in our conversation that I'd love to just dig into a bit more. And it was very powerful. It stuck with me. And you said, the depth of your trauma is how much space that you will be able to hold for others. And it really hit me. So I don't know, I wanted you to share a little bit more about that belief.
Well, I can say first that it didn't come from me. Like, it was that clear, clear knowing. Like, still trying to describe what I meant by that is challenging to do with my own intellect. But it is kind of based on my work with trauma. Like, I'm a trauma-informed therapist. I've been working with trauma my entire career, like through craniosacral therapy, somato-emotional release, and like learning how to connect your life with your body, and like how life shows up in body, and how to like kind of heal from the inside out, right? And so what I've noticed is that the clients that I sit with who have the greatest amounts of trauma, whether this life or another life or generational, right? Like categorical, their capacity to hold space is profound. And, trauma can be like the loss of a parent, right? It doesn't have to be a car accident. There are many different ways to quantify and qualify trauma. But in my opinion, in my deep study of grief over the past 15 years and beyond, but grief is a necessary part of like integrated growth. Like, true sustainable growth requires grief. So we grieve the loss of our parents so that we can mature in ways, so that we can become our own parent in ways that, we're now missing. Like, and so we grow up, we move forward, and we learn how to share some of that like medicine from our own grief process with others, to help others with their loss, with their grief, with their trauma. And so there's this kind of, initiation, but also like graduation, that happens from being like fully integrated in that process. And it really, like, again, it really was just something that came through me, but like the magnitude of like what you've experienced in your life that has humbled you also represents the same magnitude of like the light, beauty, the space that you can hold, like what you can really share with the world. And I really feel that the process of alchemy, the process of really going into, our like little tiny triggers or our big hairy triggers, or the processes of where our trauma comes to the present moment, like where what we're still holding in our body like comes forward to the present moment, right? That's like one way to define a trigger, because like those are the ways that we can really be with, that allows us to find purpose and meaning, to find really something beautiful, like out of something tragic. And the space that we can hold as a result of that is truly profound.
This is the perfect time to segue into discussing the wounded healer archetype. I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Mm. Well, I'm a wounded healer in this moment. Like, I have a sprained ankle. So it's like, there's the obvious, and then there's like, the really deep stuff, right? Like, I think I have been a wounded healer for sure. My wounds and wanting to really look at them and heal them, like, so that I'm not living with deep wounding. I'm living more with lessons and with the alchemy that comes from my medicine, like how I've transformed like the really hard and terrible things that have happened to me, and brought them into a greater acceptance of my life as like a whole integrated person versus wanting to push away one thing. I would say like an unintegrated wounded healer would probably still really want to blame and push away and not really want to be here in their body, right? It can feel like too much. Like, it's a lot to be in your body. That's why a lot of us don't live in our bodies, because of how much they hold. Like, they're just memory banks of our whole life and, of our mom's life, because we were in the womb with her, and like, and beyond and beyond and beyond. So, I mean,
Let's chat a little bit about integration. What are your beliefs around integration? You can talk about it in the context of your work, because you are very clear that you want to consciously integrate traumatic life experiences through your work. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, I feel like integration is one of the most important aspects of healing. I think like a lot of what I've done throughout my career is help people integrate their lives, find a deeper understanding, to find, a translation of like what their body's trying to tell them or what their emotions are trying to tell them. Because, when you first enter the body, like, it can be really overwhelming because, like I said, how much is stored there and how far away you've been from that, like, home. And so integration for me is a process of really coming back into harmony with yourself, coming back into your body, coming back home, coming back into your wholeness, but also giving yourself time and space to deeply acknowledge what happened, instead of rushing yourself through your own process and thinking like, oh, I should be done grieving my mother. It's been 10 years. Or I should be done grieving my father. It's been 15 years. I feel like integration is like, I will live with this, in harmony with this, in relationship with this my whole life. And that's okay. It's part of what makes me a whole and integrated human.
Yeah. And, I recently had my own awakening because I've been trying to get pregnant and having some struggles there. And so I've been diving a little bit deeper in, okay, what's happening? What's still left? What's left to process or integrate or let go of or forgive? And so I've been working a lot on forgiveness of myself, forgiveness of my mother, forgiveness of my father. And it's this ever growing process. It's just deepening and deepening and deepening. And I have to say, it's like throughout the process of really wanting to become a mother, I've actually been able to deepen my relationship with my mother, even though she's been gone 15 years. I've been able to have more conversations, more understanding, and it's just been very powerful because for many years, I wasn't going there. And then it's like the universe is like, well, if you don't want to go there, we are not going to get you to motherhood. We are not going, like you got to look at this, go a little bit deeper. So this has been a very transformational couple of years in my life, stepping into motherhood. Um, yeah. And just really, being gentle and boy, do we have. So I thought I had forgiven, I thought that there's just so many layers to forgiveness. And really embodying what that means. So, I guess I would be considered a wounded healer. I guess we all are in a sense because we're all wounded and we're all healing, bringing our medicine through. But I would love to talk a little bit more about what people can expect from some of your programs. I know that you have Sacred Alchemy, and I think you have something else coming up. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about how people can work with you.
Yeah. Well, in coming from this topic of the wounded healer, I think it's also really important to just be aware in your own body, mind, heart of when you're thinking from wounding and when you're thinking from wholeness. When you're acting from wounding, when you're acting from wholeness. I don't really come from, or I don't know if it's not where I've come from. I don't know that I really believe in good and bad energy or evil and, angelic. It's I believe in wounding. And I believe that deep wounding can create a lot more wounding, right? When someone's acting and thinking from their wounding. So I think, at least in Sacred Alchemy and a lot of my private work, this is one of the things that we can explore is where your actions are really coming from or where they're coming from, is that thought coming from unintegrated trauma, or is that thought coming from your wholeness? Because they're very different. Thoughts that come from your trauma are very urgent. Now. Thoughts that come from wholeness are very spacious, very calm, harmonious. And the process of sacred alchemy for me is really going into different areas in your life. And it's a way of viewing your life differently as this field of lessons versus, trauma or blame or things that you kind of feel underneath. Sacred alchemy is a process of really exploring so that you can understand and integrate all of what has happened to you in your life to be a part of your wholeness versus a part of something that you're still pushing away or, something you feel you can't have. And so it's also a process of really getting to know your soul and of really understanding yourself through, there's influence around the chakra system. There's influence from a lot of different modalities that I've explored in my career, as well as what I've learned from bodies that I bring into that work. And I would say more than anything, it's a shift in perspective, seeing from the viewpoint of your soul versus from, your little self or your wounded self. All of that is a part of you. And the other thing you're talking about is actually something I've wanted to create my entire career. Towards the end of this year and at the beginning of next year, I'm bringing a healer's training forward. And again, it's something I've wanted my whole career. It just now feels like the time. I feel like there are a lot of healers out there who are really looking for deeper self-permission and deeper confidence to bring their medicine forward, because I feel like now more than ever is a time for this medicine to come in. Like now more than ever, like our work is going to be needed. Like the work that you've been doing with yourself, the work that I've been doing with myself, the work I've been engaged in with my family, with my clients, with my friends, like all of us are really needed. And it's, I feel like it's important to have a really safe and sacred container to be able to explore that, like authentically.
Yes. What have you received most from your devotion to your healing work?
Oh, wow. Purpose, understanding,
Yeah.
like a kind of connection to my life and to my work and to myself that goes beyond words, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's like a knowing, right? A deep, or almost like a deep satisfaction. I'm trying to put words on it.
and self-confidence, I would say. Deep self-confidence, like the process of simply honoring my intuition over and over again creates more confidence with myself. Like I trust myself. I trust my intuitive guidance. I trust my emotions, what my emotions are trying to tell me. You know, when I know where they're coming from, right? But I feel like the healing process in general is this deep clarifying. It's like you kind of clarify and peel back the layers of really being able to see yourself, to see your life.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Divine Lifestyles Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your episodes. If you really loved this episode, screenshot it and share it on social media. It will help us to continue to make an impact. With gratitude and love always, keep illuminating your path.